Time for world politics right here on Pod TV. And I guess that if you're in second place, you have to find a way to keep yourself in the news and maybe garner some support and all along those lines. So I saw that Nikki Haley has had a couple of interesting things to say, and I've got Jim Eid with me as well as Nick Palveda, and we'll see who else pops into this conversation and all along those lines. But I do know that Nikki Haley was saying recently that she was a supporter of states' rights, and that if Texas wanted to secede, they could go right ahead and do that because they had every right to do that, and all along those lines. And I don't know that that's in the Constitution. That would be news and all in that space. But she was saying that she would be perfectly fine with that if either Texas or other people wanted to secede. And, Marjorie Taylor Greene was oftentimes saying some very interesting things, had put out this notion of the red states divorcing themselves from the blue states and all along those lines. So I guess these folks are trying to win some of the support of the MAGA folks and all along those lines. So definitely that was in the news. And Nikki Haley was also talking about the Confederate battle flag. And 4 years after South Carolina removed the Confederate battle flag from its state house grounds, Nikki Haley has offered two separate explanations of the flag's meaning in less than a week. So Haley, the state governor, when the flag was pulled in 2015 from its place of honor in Columbia, said in a 2019 interview with conservative radio host Glenn Beck that the man who shot and killed 8 Black churchgoers in Charleston, murders that were the impetus for the flag's lowering, had hijacked a symbol that many people took to stand for service and sacrifice and heritage. That is what she said, and all along those lines. And 2 days later, she wrote in the Washington Post, "Everyone knows that the flag has always been a symbol of slavery, discrimination, and hate for many people." So she was taking different tracks in that line. And we also know that she recently said some things around slavery and all along those lines. So she's having some interesting notes to say, and some of these are somewhat contradictory messages. So definitely she is of the daughter of Indian immigrants, and definitely has some mixed heritage. So she was calling out acts of individual prejudice and the people responsible. But now, as a Republican candidate, she's avoided denouncing society or groups of people as racist. And she's even said some comments as to whether racism is a thing in this country or not. So definitely she has called out prejudice, but she's been rejecting the notion of systematic racism, even though we do know that that can exist even in the year 2024. Ask people about redlining or ask people about some other things as well. So that is something that goes on, and definitely some thoughts around that people may want to share as well. But I'm going to bring on my good friend Jim Eid. He's got some interesting views. I know Sasha Starr has got some interesting views as well, and we'll talk about politics. But that's what I thought I'd start off with a little bit of Nikki Haley, because she definitely got to try to garner some support and all along those lines, as she is right now behind. But hey, all that could change with all these things going on with the trials and all along those lines. I also saw that President Biden was getting involved in the situation in Palestine, because he was actually issuing an order targeting Israeli settlers who attacked West Bank Palestinians. And that is something that is going on. So the House passed a $79 billion package, including child tax credit and tax breaks, in a rare moment of bipartisanship. So yes, we can have bipartisanship and all along those lines. But the U.S. has imposed sanctions on 4 Israeli settlers over West Bank violence, and the leader of Israel has said that that wasn't necessary. That is what Netanyahu said, and all in that space. But Jim, that's just some of the things that caught my eyes. And we also saw that Trump's legal losing streak is continuing as the judge tossed out the dossier lawsuit. So it seems like every time he goes to court, he's not having that much luck and everything. So Donald Trump's sex and bribes data protection cases was rejected, and wasn't even by our courts. This was by the UK court. So he's not even having luck when he's going over there in other parts of the world, because Donald Trump has lost a London case against an ex-M16 spy over the Kremlin dossier. So I guess there was some information about him in that dossier that he was trying to hide as well. So it seems like he's having bad luck in United States courts and in courts of other parts of the world as well. But I guess we'll start off with Nikki. What's your thoughts about Nikki? And is this going to work, her trying to find ways to win the support of those MAGA folks and all along those lines?
No, there's no chance that she wins the MAGA votes. They're behind Trump no matter what. And you remember when he said, we're going to be tired of winning. Well, he might want to try it sometime winning, because he's on a tremendous losing streak. And I'm sure he's going to lose more in the future. But Nikki Haley has got to appeal to the other people who are not just single file marching behind Donald Trump as the supposed leader of the Republican Party. The Republican Party has to regain its senses and get past Donald Trump. I don't think Donald Trump's legacy is going to last very long, but as long as he's calling the shots. For example, we had this migrant immigration and border issue where there was a compromise in the Senate, and the Speaker of the House said it was dead on arrival in the House because they don't even want to cooperate. And this idea of succession, it's the United States of America, and what they want is division. And so one of the things about the United States is that there are some principles we all agree on: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, for example. And there are some things that we disagree on, but those disagreements don't have to be so divisive. They've become so divisive in recent years, and Donald Trump pours gasoline on that fire. So Nikki Haley has got to appeal to what still remains of the Republican Party, legitimate Republicans who have a conservative point of view. And she's very conservative, so she can appeal to them. And she isn't someone who is so far to the right that independents and moderate Republicans just can't stand the thought of them. So she can appeal to a certain part of that party, but the extreme right has gotten so much clout, and Donald Trump gets all the credit for that. That the other moderate politicians or people that are not so extreme, they're afraid. They're just simply afraid of them. They'll think that they're going to get primaried in the next election and they'll lose. So they'll lose to someone further right than they are. So everybody is playing that game right now. And as long as that's going on, the Republican Party is going to be unrecognizable.
Yeah, and along those same lines, and I just wanted to bring in somebody that claims that he is got some poll information and that he is seeing a way for Trump to win, and all along those lines, because he is one of the founders of our network here at Pod TV. But Nick Palveda has said several times that he believes that the next president of the United States will be the past president of the United States, that being Donald Trump, and all along those lines. So, Nick, I've heard you say this a couple of times. You just came back from New York and everything, and I know New York is definitely not necessarily Trump territory, even though he does have some buildings in that area and everything. But I'm thinking you might have saw some anti-Trump people and all in that way, but you might have seen some pro-Trump people when you were visiting some of the TV stations and other things as well. So what's your thoughts? And do you still think that Donald Trump is going to be the president in the year 2024 when the elections are held in November?
Yeah, first of all, let's look at Nikki Haley, since you brought her up. If she doesn't score on Super Tuesday, she's out of the picture. So she's got to score some states. If she goes 0 and for everything, it's over. So and Super Tuesday, she's got 30 days, a little more than that, to get her act together. It's March the 5th. So as we're watching the hurricane go through, if she doesn't hustle on Super Tuesday, it'll be over, and then Donald Trump will be the presumptive nominee. Now, we also have another factor that we didn't bring up, but it's going to come in 2 weeks from now. It's called the Taylor Swift factor. Now, we didn't bring that up, but media is starting to bring this up. But Taylor Swift has an unbelievable cult-like following, a
Mhm.
Trump-like following of younger people, voters, which Gen Z or whatever they are bigger than the seniors of our age. You know, where she's got this big cult, and a lot of them will follow her. And she was last time she endorsed Biden. If she turns, and right now she's staying out, which is good because the Super Bowl's coming up. But let me tell you something: if she turns her Swifties on, they're actually a force to deal with that Trump has never seen before. I've never seen it until I went to go see the Barbie movie, and then all of a sudden, bang! Do these people vote? I mean, this could be a really big problem. So we're going to announce the Taylor Swift factor, and Trump attacking Taylor Swift is going to be a real tough attack. I mean, because of her cult-like following,
Yeah,
she's
that'll
unbelievable.
backfire.
So it'll could backfire big time on her. So you know, so we're it ain't over until it's over right now, Mark. But what Don needs to do is get Taylor out of the pictures and go one on one with Joe, and then he'll win. But if Taylor walks in, you know, if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl and Taylor is there, this could be she could be a game changer. But I'm curious what our friends in Canada have to say. Oh, there's a friend in
Yeah,
Canada.
there's a friend of character. Definitely interested to see what Sasha's got to say about that as well. I will say something that is making me feel good, and as I am representing the club, at least here in this particular part of Pod TV, there are some others that are in there as well. But and I don't know that you ever had one, Jim, and I know probably Sasha never did. But for those of us that are part of the Beard Brigade, it is good to know that you can have a beard and still be popular, because Travis Kelce is not exactly clean shaven and all along those lines, but he is a major superstar and he's got himself a very attractive young lady and everything. So maybe there's hope for me yet, because the Beard Brigade has won in that sense. Because when I look at him, he's got a well-kept beard, but it's definitely a beard that amazing receiver has, and all along those lines. I guess he plays tight end, if I'm remembering correctly, and everything.
Correct.
But definitely he is a part of the Beard Brigade, and he's pulled Taylor Swift. So maybe I can go pull Beyonce. Oh, wait a minute. Beyonce's married and got a husband, so that might not be to do with everything.
Missed it by that much.
Missed by that much. But Sasha, seriously, I just had to throw that in there. But what is your thoughts around this notion of Nikki Haley? You mentioned it earlier on our World Edition, and you also mentioned that Nikki Haley is somebody that could beat Biden. But when you looked at your surveys and some of the things that you were looking at, Trump was down to Biden. So you were even mentioning that on our World Edition, how if Nikki Haley ran and was able to get some traction, if she could actually defeat the current president and become the first woman president ever here in the United States. But what is your thoughts on that? And are you still holding to that position? Because you did mention that on World Edition earlier today.
Yeah, I saw it on CNN early in the morning today that Biden has 6% advantage over Trump if election is being held today. On the other hand, Nikki Haley has 6 to 8% advantage over Biden again if election is being held today. Now, so obviously these advantages for Biden and Democrats if Haley will get out of the way as soon as possible, because she is a real and possible threat to Biden while Trump is not. So therefore, Trump, besides there are some, Trump will have very soon a huge cash problem. Cash problem is arising from the fact that, by his own admission, a year ago, he had $400 million liquid capital. That's not so bad. Of course, you don't have to trust him, what he's saying, but let's assume that that's true. He paid last year in 2023, he paid $50 million to lawyers. Let's assume that he paid money that he raised through his electorate or so on. He didn't touch his 400, it's still there. So it's basically his elector people, they're paying this money. That's okay, that's fine. As long as it's legal, why not? However, now he has to come up with 83.5 plus 5, 88.5 plus some charges. So people estimated that it's close to $100 million to be able to appeal Agent Carroll case. If he's not going to post, the time is clicking, he has 1 month after the judgment. So it's probably a few days already passed. So he still has, some say 3, maybe even 4 weeks. But he has to come up. There is no bond agency in the United States that would agree to put this money for him. So it's Trump or people who support him, maybe Elon Musk, maybe some other people who love him and who definitely will support him. So they will probably put this $100 million. But there is another problem. Manhattan judge he already has on his plate a judgment for $370 million. But he's gonna, after this Agent Keller judgment, he's gonna increase it to, some people believe 5, but most likely $600 million. Of course, Musk can still put this money, although after Twitter, he's not that generous, I believe, but he's probably, maybe he'll put half of it. But then other half, probably, what is Trump going to put? Oh, maybe his children, his sons, his daughter, maybe they're going to put some few $100 million here and there. Probably. But if not, then he has to cough up with cash. It's cash, baby, cash. Hey, Trump, so how much cash do you still have? Whatever you have to bring to the court. So then you can appeal. And what are your chances on appeal? Well, it doesn't matter because this money will go to Agent Keller and all his liquidity will arise from the liquidation of all his real estate business and everything else. So you know what? One lawyer, more than a year ago, actually, he had a podcast, and he said, when asked if Trump will go to jail, he said, you know what? He'll never go to jail, but he will lose all his money in legal fees and judgments. And when he'll die, he will be a destitute old man. Full stop, period.
Wow. Along those same lines, Sasha, and everything, I had mentioned it earlier, but I was just wondering, this is for Jim and you. There are sometimes times in the society, and particularly in presidential politics, that we put our nose in other people's interests and everything. So as I mentioned earlier, apparently there are some sanctions being placed on some of the Israeli folks in terms of what they are doing with the Palestinian settlers. And apparently this is something that Biden is doing. And I'm thinking that this could be something that could harm him on the foreign front in the political landscape. But I just wondering your thoughts on that, as one that has definitely got some of that heritage and everything along those lines, Sasha. But also, Jim, I'd love to hear your thoughts as well, because I saw that and I'm going like, wait a minute, sometimes we are busy with our own issues here in the United States, but apparently we have issued an order targeting the Israeli settlers who have attacked those West Bank Palestinians. I'm not sure how much an order from the United States will impact those folks in Israel, but I'd love to hear your thoughts around this, because apparently these are U.S. imposed sanctions on 4 Israeli settlers. So it's not even
under what right? Under what right? U.S. can impose sanctions against Israeli settlers. What is that? Is that somebody lost his mind, or?
No. People put sanctions on international figures all the time. You know, that's done, but what effect it will have is negligible.
But wait a moment. The U.S. put sanctions on Israeli settlers who are obviously Israeli citizens, and how U.S. can sanction Israeli citizens one way or another.
How do you enforce it?
I mean,
you can't enforce it, but it happens all the time, Sasha. You know, they sanction Russian citizens. They sanction anybody that they think is a terrorist. You know.
Yeah, they'll seize their boats on the Sea of Galilee. Come on, You know,
Yeah,
what are you supposed to say? I
Yeah.
just don't.
No,
There's
but,
no
but Nick,
enforcement.
Nick and Jim, along those same lines, as I recall studying a little bit of history, there were a number of those kind of sanctions, and sometimes people say they were effective, but they took a long time, and it was over a course of time, and it was over something that was not as popular as some of the things that Israel is doing and everything. But I do remember that there were sanctions placed on South Africa during the apartheid era and all along those lines. And some people would say that those sanctions are part of the reason that apartheid ended, but it was over a course of time. And you can even look at some of the Latin American countries. I think we might have had some sanctions, and you can correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
Jim, against like the Philippines and against some of the other places that we didn't like. I mean, one of your favorite places, Nick, and everything. I think there were some sanctions on some of the folks from Venezuela and all along those lines. Now, whether
Well,
those
those sanctions have
did anything,
because they're trade sanctions, you know, and
Yeah.
that can
Trade,
hurt.
trade sanctions are different than, like I said, what are you going to do on the people in the West Bank? What are you going to do? Seize their boats in the Sea of Galilee?
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense.
No.
So I don't see anything happening there. I do see that the possibility of escalating in the Middle East, especially Iran's involvement in terms of supplying these drones and the Houthi rebels attacking the U.S. ships. I don't see that to be a good thing for the Houthi rebels, because the U.S. is kind of tiptoeing around there. But when they get tired of it, it's like SWAT. It's like a lion. You know, you can nip the lion a couple times, but if the lion gets mad, the lion will eat you alive. And the Houthi rebels just don't get that. So the only question is, will they do something to make the U.S. mad? And you don't want to do that.
Well,
the Japanese found that out in World War II. But I'm telling you, this ain't going to be World War II. This will be over faster than when we invaded Kuwait and Iraq. The Houthi rebels have no shot. The real problem is they actually believe they have a shot. You know, in other words, the weird thing about the people in that part of the world, Mark, they actually believe, because they have never seen how big and strong the United States is, how our military might is. They haven't seen what we can do. They actually believe they have a shot. They have no shot.
Well, we have people that want chaos, and if they create chaos, then they're satisfied, even if they don't think they can win. But you know, one thing that we haven't really talked about is Netanyahu is part of the problem. You know, because he's very unpopular in Israel. One poll I said 15% of the people support him, and but as long as he keeps this action going, nobody's going to change leadership in the middle of this kind of war and this type of environment. So he's fine as is, as long as he keeps the tension level high. And so Biden is sick of him right now. He's had enough of him because he's not trying to solve this problem. And so the Israelis have got to kick him out, get rid of him somehow, put in somebody who's more reasonable, willing to, you know, negotiate, willing to. And I don't know what the ultimate answer is, but, you know, I think there are people on both sides of except for the extremists, they just want chaos. You know, we're going to have to deal with that. It's like the MAGA hats in the Congress. You know, they want to, you know, just cause trouble. They don't want to raise the debt limit. They don't want to, you know, settle the border dispute. They just want chaos. And so we're never going to get away from those types of people. But there are enough people there that want to have a peaceful solution. But Netanyahu, I don't think, is one of them.
It's not just a question of Netanyahu. There is a collective government right now in Israel.
Yes.
And the aim of that government, and everybody agrees with Netanyahu, that the aim right now is completely eliminate the threat from Hamas. And to eliminate the threat from Hamas, it means have Hamas killed, dead, non-existent. Unless somebody can offer some other solution. For example, if countries like Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, maybe some other countries, would like to take responsibility to rebuild Gaza, to make sure that it will be a peaceful, if not the country, but at least territory, and maybe later on a country with its own government, and would guarantee the Israel's security, then it's possible to put on a table and discuss. Short of that,
Sasha,
nothing will happen.
but
Yes,
Sasha,
Lou.
along those same lines, President Biden offered something about creating a Palestinian state that would be a demilitarized state, and there was also some conversations around there being some negotiations using Qatar and everything, including some of the hostage release and even a extended ceasefire and all along those lines. Now, whether any of these things take place or not, that'll be interesting to see. And I was actually talking to some individuals that are more in the political space than even I am, and they were actually saying something kind of what Jim said, which is that maybe Netanyahu doesn't necessarily want to end the war, because right now that is what is keeping him in power. Because as soon as this is over, he is gone. From
it's not the issue of Netanyahu. There is a collective government right now, at least until the war will be ended. Once the war is ended, there will be election, and Netanyahu certainly will be thrown away. He's not going to stay much longer. But right now, okay, let's imagine that Netanyahu is only one who wants the continuation of the war for obvious reasons, and all others want to stop it. They would definitely, as a collective government, they would stop the war instantly if they wanted to. But they don't want to stop the war because the protection of Israel depends on Hamas will be gone one way or another, either through liquidation or through guarantees of other countries and so on. But there is no proposal on the table that would guarantee the security of Israel. There's nothing. It's talking. Some people say this, a little bit of that. Now, change the topic. United States has a problem with Iran-backed militia in several different countries, including Iraq and Syria and Jordan and the Houthis and whoever else is there.
Yep.
So instead of dealing with that problem, Biden is going after Israeli settlers. What kind of a joke is that? Who are the Israeli settlers? There are families who are working on the land, and they have families, children including, or so on, and they're trying to build a peaceful communities there. So what Biden is completely out of his mind to solve the U.S. problems by attacking Israeli settlers. That's the biggest joke I've ever heard.
No, I don't agree, Sacha. I do agree that there is a coalition government, and right now, after October 7th, there is a solid base that wants to destroy Hamas, and I don't blame them in the slightest. But the coalition government can change and can be influenced, and who leads it does matter. And there's no question that we're trying to the United States government is trying to deal with Iran, and it's very touchy because, nuclear capacity, these types of things are very difficult. And the settlers in the West Bank, and part of what Netanyahu did is continue to expand the settlers and continue to make Palestinians and other Arab countries annoyed and angry. And many people blame Netanyahu's policies for creating the type of a terrorist attack that occurred on October 7th. So this is the type of thing where I think they need a leadership change. It's important that they have a leadership change, and if not, things like what's going on in the West Bank, where people weren't just peaceful there. What the sanctions are about was shooting and killing people. So this is the kind of thing that no country should condone. And what we want is a peaceful solution. And who are in favor of a peaceful solution? Right now, there's blame on both sides. And I think right now, after October 7th, all of the people were sympathetic to Israel right now. But if Israel does not, play ball a little bit about trying to arrive at that peaceful solution, and I agree completely with you that the Arab countries need to step up. If it's Egypt or Saudi Arabia, I think Saudi Arabia is one of the best bets. But they've got to take some sort of responsibility for what's going on there too. And
Jim, it's also Qatar should step in.
Yes,
it's United Arab Emirates. It's Egypt, and that's enough. You don't even need anybody else. This 4 countries, they can definitely do their thing. And
I think some of them are. I know Qatar and others have tried to put in some negotiations and have tried to step in. And now, whether these negotiations take place or not, it'll be interesting to see. But just pivoting slightly, and I was just curious about something because there's another part of the world that is definitely engaged in the war and is definitely doing some valiant effort to put fight against a tyrant, because there's no doubt that Putin is a tyrant and along those lines. But I just saw that Zelensky has invited EU leaders to join preparations for a global peace summit. So I'm trying to figure out whether we are actually going to see some peace in the world, and is Ukraine going to be behind this peace summit? Because there are a number of conflicts going on. There is the Ukraine, there's the one we're talking about, which is Israel. There is Myanmar. There are a number of other ones that are in Africa.
Sure.
So apparently there's going to be a global peace summit that is taking part, and Zelensky is part of it, apparently, because he's invited some EU leaders to participate, I guess, with him and everything. So is this going to be a shift in the narrative? Because right now there's at least 6 or 7 wars that I'm aware of that are going on, and I've not lost track. So there are probably more than that.
Yeah, right. It's sad, but it's hard to keep track of them all.
I'll tell you what's happened is that the Putin's dream was to create some kind of a conference similar to Yalta, Potsdam, 1945, where the new order will be agreed. Now, in 1945, Soviet Union was one of 3 winners. Actually, France probably is the 4th one, but I wouldn't argue about France that much, but 3 for sure. And they agreed to a new world order where each country had its zone of influence, and you can call it any way you want, and United Nations was created and all that stuff. Because Soviet Union, one of the winners of Second World War, ceased to exist in 1991, all the USSR zone of influence, which was a Warsaw Pact, ceased to exist as well. So therefore, all this old world order is no longer there. So in the 90s, Russia was very weak to talk about something else, and United States was very stupid not to put the new world order, the winners of Cold War. They could dictate any new configuration, whatever they could come up with. They failed completely.
But Sasha, along those same lines, I think you're talking about when you jump.
Hold on. So Russia had time on its hands to rebuild its military, to bring new conscripts and military mobilization and so on. Finally, they annexed part of Ukraine in 2014 with agreement from the West, NATO and US including. And in 2022, they started this atrocious war where they themselves already lost 320,000 people, and Ukraine lost probably the same number. I'm not so sure what exactly it is. Nobody knows, I think. So right now, it's very advantageous when United States and Israel, they get stuck in the Middle East with all these problems, and US started to lose its people. And Ukraine is on the brink of disaster because United States apparently no longer helps to Ukraine. Now, European Union just approved now $50 billion help to Ukraine. Thank God. US no longer can support Ukraine. So this is for Russia. It's the most advantageous time to create a new world order, to get their sphere of influence, which will be most likely countries of old Soviet Union. Probably they will try to grab Baltic states, but we'll see. We don't know that. And for the West, especially United States, it's the most disadvantageous time to do the new world order. But listen, maybe they will have to do it anyway.
Well, Sasha, we have to remember that Russia has the a veto on the UN Security Council. So there's nothing that it can get passed in the UN that Russia can't veto. And if you try to take Russia out of the Security Council, which after their actions I think is warranted, China wouldn't agree to that. So there's a very difficult way that it's very difficult and not easy at all to think of any way of them creating a new world order, even when Russia was weak. And now that Russia has rebuilt, all of these types of things, again, when they attacked Ukraine, there has to be a response. And when we say the U.S. is no longer supporting them, that's not entirely true. The U.S. still supports them, but the MAGA hats in the Congress, in the House, are not okaying expenditures because they're tying it to the border. And so Biden wants to send money to the Ukraine. Many politicians want to send money to Ukraine, but we have a block of people in the House, all Republicans, who are saying no until and tying it to something that's unrelated entirely. So it's not the U.S. that's backing out. It is. Let's put the blame where it lies, on the MAGA extremist Republicans.
No, I agree with you, but the fact remains that now for second month at least, there is no help from.
Yes, I know, and it's a shame, and I am ashamed. But I think we need to put the blame where it lies.
Yeah, but along the same lines, and I'd love to hear from Jacoby as well, because I know one thing we talk about this, a new world order, and there is a lot of people that even pay attention to the old world order, and I'm not even sure whether there are any of those existing powers, because definitely there was this whole notion of colonialism, and I do remember when I know that certain people that are on the network, like Chris Greco and others, are not the biggest fans of France, but there was a time that France, Italy, and England and a number of others were dividing up the world as well and everything, but they don't even have the power that they used to have, because the UK is nowhere what it used to be, and all along those lines. But Jacoby, your thoughts around this new world order and how it might have played even to the old world order as well, because there was a time that definitely Africa was being divided and Asia was being divided, and there are some people that say that the new world order is divided in those areas and now. But I'd love to hear some of your thoughts, and maybe Kim wants to come on and share some of hers as well.
It's always the cycle. I mean, there's always a new world order that comes through. So this is part of that cycle. And yes, Russia is with the whole, what is it, Russia, China, what is it, BRICS, I think it is, trying to create the new world order out of that. It's always the money has to be there. The finances have to be there. If that happens, then yes, there's going to be a shift, but the financing isn't there yet, so there can't be a shift. However, the new world order is being pushed through by the authoritarian views. That's what's happening more so than anything.
Just real quickly, because you mentioned it, I just want to clarify, because that's one of the other points I was going to get to, and Kim may have some thoughts around this as well. And I know when we do our show, particularly on Economic Monday, we talk about this deficit exists, and this might even pull Nick into the conversation. I knew it would pull Steve in if he was here. But India, which is part of this new world order, is part of BRICS. They just actually announced their budget, and apparently their fiscal deficit for 2025, which is coming up not this year but next year, is going to narrow to 5.1%, even as it boosts something that we talk about, which is this whole notion of infrastructure spending and all along those lines. So they might actually be becoming a stronger economic power and even doing a better job of getting their deficit under control than we are doing here in the United States. So I'd love to hear everybody's thoughts around that, because when I saw that figure, I was going like, wait a minute, we can't even get our act together. And we've got things that are in the trillion, and it looks like they have found ways to actually curtail it, and they are a big country as well. But I was just wondering y'all's thoughts on that.
Well, we don't want the suffering of the Indian people in the United States. So, it's not a clear apples to apples comparison. But there's no question our deficit is out of control, and it needs, we need to not only increase revenue, but reduce spending. There's no question about that.
Yeah. Kim, any thoughts you've got? Because you've been over there quiet and everything, but I'd love to hear your views on some of this as well.
Well, I talked a lot today, so there's a lot going on, but I agree with Jim. We need to be taking care of ourselves first and putting the United States in a position where we're not going to fail. And right now, I see us failing really big. We're failing our youth. They have no future to look forward to anything. They can't even afford to buy houses coming out of college. They can't find jobs. We need to invest some time and energy back into our own community, our own country. And right now we're divided. I mean, how embarrassing is that? You got a state going, screw you, president, we're going to do what we want. I mean, 4 years ago we had people, attacking our own capital, our own people. So, I mean, we're imploding right now, and we need to start uniting, and we need to do it not for us. We're done. We screwed this up. We need to do this for our futures, our children's future. Totovi, for your children's future, because we're leaving one heck of a mess. And you know what? I'm not going to put all the blame on the government. They started it. They're laggards, just like David says, because when you got a leader lagging in leadership, it invites everybody else to behave that way. And yeah, I did steal that from Meryl Streep, but it's true. We need to step up. And I was talking to Sean, our young new, and he's not even an intern. He's doing more work than I do. And I told him they need to just bombard the voting boxes and tell us what they want. Because what we put in place now is their future, and it's a piece of crap right now. And, and I hate sounding this way, but this is what we have allowed to happen. And I would like to see somebody who can unite us. And I repeat this over and over, somebody who doesn't have one foot in prison and fighting to keep himself out all the time, and the other one foot in the grave, and they're both fighting over a retirement home. I'm just, and because it's all self-interest at this point. Nothing that they're doing is for you or me. It's about them and their egos. So I kind of, as much as a lot of people don't like Nikki Haley or anything, I really like an alternative. And I would love to see someone who can unify us. And, she's got a very powerful unifying position working for the UN all these years. I mean, she's done international work. I think people will respect her. A lot of women say she won't have a chance because men in other countries won't respect her. But I think other countries have grown up a little bit because they've had women leaders. Jadovi.
Her history is what actually keeps her back from uniting everybody. Her history towards the African American community is what harms her. The fact that she could not answer the question about the Civil War, the fact that it took her until 9 Black people were killed before she actually pulled down the Confederate flag from South Carolina. That's something that harmed a lot of minorities, or a lot of people in the minority community. Also, the platform that she's on, the Republican platform, is only a platform of vengeance and hatred, and also body control, because they're taking away women's rights. They're also taking away history and whitewashing history. So the platform itself isn't a platform of unity. The problem, and then it is true that we do need to listen more to the youth and actually get some ideas there. But the problem is we have to take those ideas instead of just giving a deaf ear to them, because they have actually voted and said they want particular things, but we ignore them. From actually women's rights. You know who took that away? Republicans and everything else. They've talked about, emissions, the Green New Deal, the separate pieces of the Green New Deal, and how they want to preserve, the environment. But you know what? People have voted against it. The oil companies have lobbied against it, and so on and so forth. So we can't just ignore them and just say, hey, we're going to give a deaf ear to you. And then we're going to talk about, we can't spend all this money. It's true that we do have to worry about our deficits, but the country should not run like a regular business. The country should run like a nonprofit. You do have to spend money to help individuals, because we cannot say, okay, well, you know what? We're just going to cut off Detroit because Detroit's costing the government money. Or we're going to cut off every red state because all the blue states are the ones that are actually giving money to the government. So we cannot look at the utopian idea that government should run like a normal business. No, businessmen have always turned out to be pretty bad at government. So
I agree on that one.
That's for sure.
we have to actually look at the history and things that have worked, things that do help. Our priorities are all screwed up. We spend so much money on destroying things when we cut funds from healthcare, special needs, the education. We talk about, oh, well, you got to be financially sound and financially educated. Well, you're cutting funds from education, and you know what? We don't have teachers to teach this stuff. So why are we? So
That's
yeah,
a
we got
big
a lot of
problem
problems
there. But
Absolutely.
I'm not for Nikki Haley. I'm just saying I think she's a better candidate than Trump. I really
She's
do.
better than Trump, but she is honestly
But she's
Biden
not
is
a
actually
good
better than her.
Yeah.
She's
No,
not
but
a good
speaking, hold on a
candidate.
second. Speaking
But
of that
she's
and
better.
everything, I've just real quickly and all along those same lines and everything. And speaking of that, just out of curiosity, because actually Nick kind of alluded to it and all in that space, but there are some Republicans, including some no-new ones, that are fearful of the Taylor Swift factor and everything, because actually Fox News commentator Sean Hannity accused Swift recently
Fox
of
News is going crazy.
misunderstanding Republican values, suggesting that she doesn't properly understand the policies and history of President Joe Biden, and warned her against endorsing him. And of course, he's a longtime Trump supporter, and definitely Vanderpool
Warned her.
response, having the nerve to warn a younger woman who is much more richer and powerful than you are, that he needs to think twice about making a personal endorsement.
Mark, did they say that about Dennis Leary, Kid Rock, any of the other people on the right wing that just sing or do entertainment? Did they say that about any of them?
Kanye?
No. Yeah, they didn't say that about Kanye. Kanye
No.
went to the president and kissed his behind. They loved themselves some Kanye, loved themselves some Kid Rock. Yeah, they love the individuals that agree with them. If you're like Taylor Swift, or you're like Travis Kelce, or any of the other individuals, yeah, they're going to condemn you. Oh, you shut up and dribble is what they told LeBron James. LeBron James is actually doing much more than any of those that told him to shut up and dribble. He's created a school and actually giving kids scholarships to go to college.
I mean, you're sounding like you don't like Fox News. You don't like Fox News? Is that
Fox lies. That's why they got sued.
Yeah.
Faux news.
I thought
So
they lost.
I want
Yeah, they
to
lost.
add something to some of that, is that, you know, we do have a lot of celebrities that get involved with doing a lot of good things for our communities, because they learn this is the way they can do it. Sometimes you can do more for your community by not being in the government and running for office. But I agree with Jatovi. I think a lot of the hate is more about you know, Taylor being a woman and being so successful, and men fear that. They don't want to admit that she can make more money than a man. And but look at Brady, right? His wife made more money than him. Come on. You know,
I don't know what
my husband used to joke, you know, he goes, I wonder how that family works, because, you know, she makes a whole lot more money than he does. So,
Yeah, but this is all kind of madman stuff. And this is like what Trump wants to not make America great again. He wants to make America white again and back into the 1950s. You don't go
right.
step forward by going backwards. And unfortunately, this whole male attitude is towards women is a reflective of our past. And men that I know now were not only impressed with women of accomplishment, but seek out their advice and counsel, put them on their boards, do all those types of things.
Marry
So
them.
the future is, you know, is changing, but they fear this change. They fear empowering minorities. They fear empowering women. They fear empowering anyone but the old way of doing things, which they had complete control over. And you could not get in without their permission. So now they see that crumbling, and it is crumbling, and it will continue to crumble because they can't hold on to it. But these are the last dying breath. And Trump represents it to me. And this is why he has so much support and so much money behind him, because the old way works for some, but they're older white males by and large, and this is changing, and I applaud the change.
Well, and it's going to be a tough road in the next 4 years because nothing has changed in our political platforms. We're still, Democrat, Republican divided. Our country is divided. It's scary to watch how we've divided. And the other thing that really bothers me, and I'm really going to dig deep on this one, is the recent drone attack on our military. And who it was by, because I did a lot of research in drones. I worked with the U.S. military and USM students in developing drones. And one of the things I learned that they lack is you have a payload and the duration with that payload. And, to carry anything that would blow up you're going to have a big drone. But the other problem that bothered me is you're talking about friendly space, friendly flying element in your space. And I know for a fact they have trackers on our drones because that was part of what I worked on, and they can tell the difference. So I have a problem with the story in itself and what happened. But if you're telling me that the enemy has developed a drone that can fly into our airspace where we just let it waltz right in, and it went that kind of duration with that kind of payload, then they have broke the code and have become far more superior in military intelligence than we will ever become. And that scares me.
That's very scary. And we actually
so what I heard on that was that
I know what is and isn't in that industry. There's a lot of changes,
what I heard,
but not a lot. Go ahead.
So what I had heard or read and everything was that it basically came in on the back end of another drone coming in. So one landing, or basically it was in the tail, so the sensors couldn't detect the one behind it.
Well, that's why we have to educate our youth, because they're the ones that are going to figure this stuff out. It's not going to be guys like me. So these types of things. This is where we need STEM support for this, and we need to fix our K through 12 education system. There's a lot of work to be done, and I think I'm not just the only one, but we're all tired of it, the idea of a Biden-Trump rematch already.
And we're letting it happen. It's happening again.
It is happening, and we're sick of it. We're all sick of it. And the idea, though, is we until we get leaders who didn't grow up in the Cold War, I don't think we're going to make much progress. Biden, throughout his entire career, has been for the working class. And so, this is a different kind of thing. You have a choice here. But it's still, he really should not be running at his age. We really do need a better candidate than Joe Biden. But I'm going to vote for him. He's definitely better than the alternative. Plus, he has a career that is identifiable as a good man.
No, we only got a few more minutes to go and everything, but just really quickly, because one of the things that is going on is there are people that have dropped out of the race and now they are targeting other things. I know that DeSantis is going after Disney and some other things again. And I did see recently, and I'd love to hear Jacoby's thoughts about this, but Vivek Ramaswamy is trying to paint this notion that we have come far and that the dream is much closer to reality than we would like to admit, because he's trying to use King's words even against King and all along those lines, because he's had this whole notion that we are much closer to the dream that Dr. King was talking about in the I Have a Dream speech and all along those lines. And he's said that recently. I just wanted your take on Vivek, who may be positioning himself to try to be vice president.
One, I don't listen to or care about any Republican who's voting Trump and quoting MLK Jr. They're trying to quote it as if it is something that is giving them some moral high ground, yet they're voting for a racist dude who quotes Hitler and has been already lost a court case on rape. So don't try and give me the high ground of, I'm a quote MLK Jr. because I'm a good person now. No, you're just trying to pander and act like you know something. So I don't care about Vivek Ramaswamy and him. Oh, the whole Taylor Swift thing. Now he's the one pushing this whole Taylor Swift conspiracy theory. No. So again, I
didn't think we could have a bigger clown than Trump, but we found one. That guy is off the rocker crazy. But he knows what he's doing. He's not crazy.
He is a very successful and very wealthy tech multi-millionaire. So what's your guys' problems?
So,
and you don't.
Did you listen to what he says?
Yeah.
Listen to what he says.
Hilton,
don't be impressed.
Paris Hilton is a rich, very
Gosh,
successful woman.
They talk about the media.
She's not somebody I'd put in
TV has left the media.
I just
can't believe it.
Listen to what he says.
You guys really don't understand conservative values.
And sure we don't. No,
I don't
really
do,
Nick.
I really do.
And you're representing it. It's all about
Jim,
money.
why do you hate America?
He makes money. So I want to vote for him.
Jim, why do you hate America? Jacoby, why do you guys hate America?
Why do you say things like that when you know it's not true? I'm a patriot, Nick. Why would you say something like that? You're smiling when you say it because you know you're wrong. It's not
whatever.
I love America and I want it to be the best it can be. And all money pursuit of the dollar is not the way to go. Tell your country club friends about it, Nick. They'll listen to you.
I want to bring up something else. A recent assassination. I think it was Zeb Rehan or Rehan Zeb. Has anyone kept up with that?
No. Who is this?
No, I didn't.
No, there was an assassination. There was a guy who put on
a local political situation in Palestine.
News to me. I'm sorry.
It happened this week. That's why I was asking if anyone heard.
Well,
anything.
there was I got trapped in the individual online.
Hey, I was gone this week. My excuse, I was watching live. I had free tickets to the show called The View. Now, I know people here don't watch that show, and they shouldn't watch that show because it's a bunch of liberals that come out and espouse liberal views.
Whoopi Goldberg on that?
But I did get to see it live, and that was pretty good. And then the Drew Barrymore show. Oh boy, there's another one. And there's just absolutely no question that our major media. That's the reason Fox exists. Our major media is so slanted toward the left. It's just not funny. So here we have one.
You don't understand liberal values, Nick. You just don't understand what made this country great.
This is hilarious because I always love that comment because it's always funny to me. Oh, I watched this one show on this one channel, and now every other channel that I ignore from Fox to OAN to all this other stuff, the whole media conglomerate is.
Come on, Jacoby. You really love Laura Ingraham. Just admit it.
Oh, who doesn't? Yeah. Bill O'Reilly loved all of them. A little bit too much.
A little too much.
So at least we have one media outlet that's fair and balanced. Then we have the left.
Oh yeah, the fair and balanced. Yeah, that's why Tucker Carlson.
We have Pod TV.
Right? Oh no, he's not on the air because he lied. Oh yeah,
we have Pod TV, and I just want to remind everyone: don't forget to go to our Pod TV store and buy books. I'm going to go there tonight and buy a book that was recommended for me to read.
Nick Haley can't win. Sorry.
I'm not for Nikki really to be the president. I don't think the candidates we have are very good to begin with. I mean,
Biden is better than
maintain the values I want maintained in our country.
Values, not money.
Right. And nobody is campaigning on policies. A lot of people are counting on their personalities. And I hope that they change because the personalities aren't that great. but it's like a high school campaign to me watching it. So
actually, Biden is campaigning on policy. It's just that he's trapped in the middle of Blowhart that's just yelling out every other word and trying to make up words and yelling out Nikki Haley to try and trick people. Yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
Biden wants more money for assisted living facilities. That's all. He wants more money
That's
for
all.
Medicare,
Yeah, that's all.
more
That's a
money for
fair
Social Security,
summary, Nick. That's
more
a fair
money
summary.
for assisted living
All he wants is
facilities.
assisted living.
That's what he wants, you know. And please,
Nick, you
please,
couldn't
more
be a
money to
bigger
study
clown if you were
Alzheimer's disease.
trying. Stop
He
it.
needs more money to study Alzheimer's disease. That's what Biden wants. We know his
Well,
policy:
what-
Medicare.
He
Social
cares about
Security,
Trump.
assisted living,
Trump's
hospice, maybe.
mental cognitive
and of course,
development is
Alzheimer's disease.
certainly in question, don't you think? Reagan's actually second administration, he was definitely diminished cognitively, and he very recently after his second term had Alzheimer's. It was diagnosed. So I think Trump is just right down that road too. I mean, if you want to talk about someone's
Reagan
mental
had
facility,
Alzheimer's disease
what about
after he
Trump?
left office.
He doesn't even understand the questions that are asked him now. He can
Yeah,
barely
yeah.
read off of the
He had
teleprompter.
Alzheimer's disease after he left office, not when he was in office.
No. When he was in office, they protected him. Everybody is clear
Well,
about
who do you
that.
think's protecting Biden?
They
You
protected
don't
him
see one
because of
TV,
his
you don't
mental
go to talk to
cognitive
us.
decline.
can't talk.
And immediately
we
after
have-
office, he was institutionalized. Poor Reagan.
well, the best part about it,
Well, and
I
it's
like the
six
guy
o'clock.
personally. Nothing
They're
against
going to
him.
have
but-
to wrap it up. And I love all of y'all. And thank you so much. This has been
Yeah.
such a divine, inspirational
And I wish
conversation.
Alzheimer's on no one.
And, everyone, let's, definitely also send prayers that we stop all of these wars and start uniting the world. And we'll look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. And maybe by then things will have been better.
I
Take
hope
care, everyone, and have a
Bye-bye.
great weekend.